See, HR is all about being human. If you do not bring in the human touch to what you do, and then possibly you will not be able to be successful. Today, people are not looking at vertical growth. Not many people are happy doing being specialized in what they do. And in case if they would like to grow up in the organization, not necessarily qualification is required. Vertical side is your domain or the technical skills, and the horizontal skills are your leadership skills, your soft skills, your behavioral skills. Those learning from failures is something which is very important. HR can actually help in terms of building the future leaders. See, I learned very basic from my boss. When you have to hire, look at skills, but before you look at skills, look at the attitude.
Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of Pine Talks, where we empower futures by inspiring knowledge and guiding values. Our today's guest, Dr. Reena Das, comes with over 25 years of experience, ranging from education to placements to training, and right now she's working as a Chief Human Resource Officer with Keolis, Hyderabad. Thank you so much, Dr. Das, for joining us for this conversation. And when I was reading your profile, there is a lot that I could read, and I could not draft the right introduction for you. And this is something I just made up right now so that I can introduce you. And I'm sure that you will do justice to all the achievements and all the milestones that you have covered over the past 25 years. So, would you mind just sharing more about you to our audience?
So my journey has been quite interesting in terms of I started with educational institutions,
Mm-hmm.
training students to help them build their career and help them in placement also.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a training and placement officer as well till 2004, and then moved into Chennai.
Okay.
So when I moved into Chennai, then I had to find a placement for myself, and that's where I landed up in Mafua.
Mm-hmm.
Mafo those days was into number one company which is into HR services,
Mm-hmm.
and I got it through my reference, who actually where I had placed students in Virtusa.
Mm-hmm.
So Ashokan Pichai, he gave me a break in Mafo to work in the Mafo Academy, which was setting up in 2004 way back. So there I was a consultant business development. So I started my career as a consultant business development and then moved into training. Then we were trying to expand into the various locations through channel development. Then I had handled multiple roles, staffing, and the Mafo gave me also a journey in terms of when it got transitioned from Mafo to Mafo Randstad and then Randstad. I was handling the role of national manager of human resource solution, selling HR solutions to various organizations. So that was a journey that I had when I moved into Chennai. And it was in 2004 to 2013, around 9 years plus that I worked for Mafo and then Randstad. So it was a nice journey that I had where I was selling HR services to various companies, going door to door and trying to sell and the HR services, starting from the recruitment to HR consulting, training, assessment, you name it. I think we had done it all of that during
Wow.
those days. After Mafo and Randstad, I moved into TVS Training and Services. I was responsible for setting up the training as well as the staffing services for TVS. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a great journey because it was a startup. Building from the scratch is what I could do for them to the best of my capability.
Mm-hmm.
And all these years when I was there working for organizations where I have to go and meet companies and try and sell services, either in terms of placement or in terms of training or any of those HR services, I always had that feeling in my mind that what if I can sit on the other side of the table
Wow.
and try and also experience whatever I'm selling, experience it myself in terms of seeing if I can really do it for the organization that I work for.
Mhm.
And God has given me an opportunity where I got a breakthrough in Bhadra.
Mhm.
Bhadra is a ground handling company which was managing the ground handling services in Chennai airport. And
Wow.
that's when I joined Bhadra, and it gave me that opportunity and freedom where I lead the HR services, not just the HR, also industrial relations as well. So that
Mhm.
was in 2013, I think so. 2013, 2015 is when I joined Bhadra,
Mhm.
and it really gave me a platform where whatever I actually had learned in terms of delivering to different organizations, I tried doing it for Bhadra as a company, and
Mhm.
it was a phenomenal experience in terms of building HR systems, process, practices, to engaging with the people, and most importantly and challenging is engaging with the union
Right.
and the industrial relations. I never had in my life that I could have done that as a job role, but that really gave me a platform where I could see the larger part of the HR, which is the real HR, I would say, in terms of engaging people and trying to do something which can benefit the people at large. And from there, pandemic hit, and then airports were all closed, and
Right.
we were also in the process of setting up and stuff, and that's where I moved into another organization called Madura Coats, which is Coats India,
Okay.
for a very brief period, but heading the HR for manufacturing for Madura Coats, again dealing with people engagement and across all the manufacturing companies, plants in India. And from there, I got this beautiful offer of heading HR as CHRO for Qlis. Qlis Hyderabad Mass Rapid Transit System. It's a French company headquartered at Paris. But then it's a beautiful organization to work with because it has diversity, equity, and inclusion embedded in it,
Mhm.
and it has very strong values in terms of we say we care, we commit, and we imagine. These values are not just been told, but it's something which has been practiced day in and day out. And there is a curious way of working,
Mhm.
and the curious way of working also tries to have four pillars, which is our people, our planet, our PTA, and our passengers. These are the foundation of the pillars that we work with. So now, for the last 3 years, I'm here in Hyderabad, enjoying each and every moment of the work that I do.
Mhm.
And most passionately, I'm very much happy because the HR strategic orientation, which is the key foundation of the organization, and I am in the process of building that strategy for the Cureless Group as one of the project leads, which is giving me immense happiness and pleasure in terms of making sure that whatever I had dreamt of doing for many organizations, I am able to do it in reality for my organizations and able to see the change that I always wanted to see. So that's little bit about me.
Wow. I mean, I can see your face glowing up talking about your work and how much you love doing the work that you're doing right now. So, and I feel that it's more often of a leader's quality that you have developed over the year, and how you are engaging and how you are pushing the boundaries of how things should be done and how careers should be you know recalibrated in a way, if I'm saying the right words. So I feel, I mean, this is something I believe in, that a leader's dream is to encapsulate the world and reimagine it under his own supervision. Like, you reimagine everything, and that's when you start working towards something, you start creating something. And when you were talking about Keolis and your role in Keolis, I could see that glow in your eyes. Frankly speaking, I could actually see that, and I could see how satisfying it can be when you are able to reach your true potential, when you're able to explore yourself as an individual in a workplace. So, the one word that struck my mind when you were talking about your experience, the two words actually, the inclusivity and the diversity in the HR ecosystem. So, can you tell us more about that, what it's about, and how does it impact not just the overall growth of the organization, but also how does it impact the values and principles that an organization beholds?
Okay, there are two aspects to it.
Mm-hmm.
One, uh, Qlis, as part of the Qlis DNA, diversity is embedded in Qlis DNA. So it is a Aculis group's perspective in terms of ensuring that we build in that component of diversity in the organization
Mm-hmm.
across layers, across levels. The other side of the coin is we are in mobility sector.
Mm-hmm.
India as a country is very new in terms of metro rail. We are in the metro rail business. Comparatively new in terms of the number of years that we have spent here.
Mm-hmm.
So here what happened is not many women, when I say talk about diversity, not many women are actually there in this industry.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it was quite a difficult challenge in terms of making sure that we bring in that element of gender diversity into this industry
Mm-hmm.
and into our organization. So when I joined Keolis, I was given a target. We were at 9.7%
Mm-hmm.
when I joined in 2022. And my boss told me, Rina, we are at 9.7.
Mm-hmm.
And those days, we used to have our strategic business plan where every year at least you need to bring 0.7% increase. That was there in way back in 2022. And he said every year we need to bring in this number which should increase.
Mm-hmm.
And then we went back seeing the data and history of the talent which is available in this mobility sector.
Mm-hmm.
And we could understand that not many women are there in this industry.
Right.
But then the contrary is like we used to have Keolis group which promotes diversity.
Mm-hmm.
We have around more than 60-70% women in our top board at the Keolis group. Those are women.
Mm-hmm.
And our chairperson, Mary Onch, she is a lady leading the whole group
Mm-hmm.
for us. So it was quite a big challenge because one side you have an organizational strategic intent to make sure that our diversity ratio goes up.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas when you see the local dynamics in India, you do not have many women, those who are there in this industry.
Right.
So we did our math in terms of seeing where is that we can bring in diverse candidates into the system. And that is where we introduce the train operators, the
Okay.
train loco pilots, those who can be women, because you cannot have people at the mid level on the senior level because there's no talent that is
Right.
available in the country per se,
Mm-hmm.
where you have in the mid level that you can hire women in the system. So we went to our storyboard. We tried to see what is the best that we can do in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the decision that we can take, where we can get the best talent for us. And that's where we try to do more of work in the space where entry level hiring is
Mm-hmm.
where we try to induce as many women as possible.
Wow.
And that's where we did a good growth from 9.7. Today we are 14.5%. And that's a proud moment for us that we could weave that growth strategy. And there's a lot of efforts that has gone. It's not that this happened overnight. It's
Mm-hmm.
3 years journey that I'm talking about, from 9.7 to 14.5% that we could bring in. So we went and tried to do more of employer branding
Mm-hmm.
in terms of what is that, why is that women would like to come in and work for an organization which is into metro rail and start their career as driver. So
Mm-hmm.
what is the motivation factor for them? So, and when we did the study, when we understood what are the reasons why women are not coming, there was one societal a blockage in their mind also, that why would women do be there as a
Right.
train operator or
Right.
a train driver or a loco pilot. So many families were not so much of progressive thinking that they could actually send their girl to
Mm-hmm.
be a train operator. And then if they are candidates available in the Hyderabad, they will have lot of other career opportunities available for them. Hyderabad as a city is known for IT industry.
Mm-hmm.
Hyderabad as a city is known for pharma industry. So why would anyone like to come and join a metro, and that to start as a train operator? So then we had to weave again in terms of what would be the possibilities for them to join, why should they join,
Right.
and what would be the growth for them if they join the organization. So from a train operator, what is the career growth that we can give? So we had gone back our storyboard again to see what career progression that we can give to someone who would
Mm-hmm.
join our organization so that they grow in this organization and build a career with us.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we thought we'll give them train operator an opportunity. Either they get into operations and build a career in operations, or if they want to get into maintenance, not many people are there in maintenance,
Hmm.
not many female are there in maintenance. Give female an opportunity to take a maintenance role also. So we diversified the roles for women, those who can come and work with our organization, and that's where we could attract a lot of people. And at the same time, there are also societal norms that I said, that
Right.
parents are not very happy to send their girls to for this job, and that's where we did a lot of drive in terms of ensuring that we take care of their safety and security.
Right.
Because why would they send not send, because they might think that it's long working hours,
Hmm.
could be safety is a concern for the women, and also for security. So we try to see the support systems that we can build back in
Hmm.
to make sure that the safety and security of women is taken care, and at the same time we also try and give them a career path. So we try to see that whatever DNA that we have got in
Hmm.
our organization as QLIS group, we are trying to embed it by providing local support that is possible. And that's where we tried to build our DI story. The DI story, we had created champions in the terms of, we had only couple of women, those who were working with us. So we said that let's build a resource group which is workforce for women.
Hmm.
So we started saying, we call the resource group as workforce women is called as WOW. So we
Wow.
started with WOW. Yeah, it's very close to my heart, because we started with a couple of girls, those who came together and trying to tell other girls, those who come and work with us, that hey, if you work here, these are the opportunities available for you.
Hmm.
And then we created champions out of those workforce women. We call them champions. These champions were the mentors, were the torchlight bearers for other girls who are the spokesperson for us, who were the people, those were promoting this culture where more women can come into the organization.
Hmm.
They took the lead of driving the workforce for women. It is like they who tried to build this culture for us, and now we are evolving this workforce women to uh, from WOW to champions, and the champions now have also to grow in the organization, right? They have now
Wow.
become the WOW leads. So that's how we could build the story of bringing the gender diversity ratio high in the organization from 9.7 to 14.5 now. And there are also a lot of awards and rewards that we have got, not just inside in QLIS, but globally acclimatized also. Like for example, Global Light Rail Award, which is
Hmm.
like it's an UK based award, which is for the workforce for women initiatives that we have done.
Wow.
And then we shared all the success stories on how a woman can actually raise up to their career bar and then can do better. And at the same time, GIS SDG award, which is a United Nations sustainability development goal.
Hmm.
That's again a prestigious award, which again our workforce for women initiative has got. So that's how we could build our success story, and it's still going on. We're trying to see what new that we can do today to ensure this initiatives that we have taken is sustainable and is taken to the next level.
I'm going to say the word wow again and
Wow,
again,
yes.
because this is a very encouraging story. And the way you actually planned everything out, the way you actually identified each and every gap, it's really commendable. Because as you mentioned, when you were unfolding the journey from 9.5 to 14.7, that's a 50% growth over 3 years in India. And how you identified each and every challenge, the future plan, the growth cycle, and everything. This actually shows your understanding of the HR role, or your understanding of a career path for an individual, and how inclusive you are and how committed you are towards the work that you're doing. And now it completely justifies the glow on your face when you were talking about these things.
It's not an individual success, I would say. It's a collective effort. The 30% now today, 30% of our train operators and station controllers are women,
Hmm.
and it cannot be done as one person for
Right, right.
sure.
I get that.
There's a lot of commitment from our leadership,
Hmm.
because it is always a top down approach. Though I would start some initiative as a workforce women WOW,
Hmm.
or WOW champions, or WOW leads, whatever you say. But then if you do not have support holistically from entire organization, any initiative that you take will not be successful. That's what I have
True.
understood. And first and foremost, our initiative in terms of we have a very, very supporting managing director, Mr. Shamchandra Mishra,
Mhm.
who is a male ally for us.
Okay.
Okay, so and I have seen the proposals that we take to him for anything that is for the growth and development of the organization. I
Mhm.
think he is one who stands up and supports it, and that is where we make we get that confidence that yes, and if it is something which you feel is he feels that it is not something which will work out, possibly we have a collective discussion. A
Mhm.
collective intelligence comes into picture where we have our CXOs. We also discuss through this idea with our managers or people those who are responsible and see if this really will work or not, and then that's where we take a decision. So it is not one person who makes a difference, it is a collective team who comes together and makes a difference in whatever initiatives that is being successful for the organization. And that's what I wanted to add here.
That's perfect, and this reminds me of a lot of conversation which are floating on the internet, wherein you know there is a male person advocating male society, or the masculine society, and there is a female advocating the feminism, and then they end up on a question that why don't we see females working in construction or these kind of jobs? Why do men have these kind of jobs? Now I feel after talking to you that it's not the job, it's the vision that is associated with the job. How can that job be made compatible for the females so that they can come and work in those kind of environment? And I feel it's a wonderful initiative, and I feel that this story should be broadcasted across the world, because it's not about uh, just including the gender inclusion or the gender diversity, but it also planning it way ahead of time, that we are not just doing working on diversity goal or something, but we are creating a sustainable environment for this to keep growing and keep thriving, that women who are working here, all their their security, their safety, everything is considered, their career path is considered, their growth is considered, the opportunities which will lie ahead of them, they are also considered. So it's a well thought plan, and I think this plan uh, should be brought across the world. And people, and it's a tight slap, frankly speaking, on people who feel that women cannot work in these kind of jobs where only men can survive or thrive. And this is really brilliant. And
It's true what you said. See, there are unconscious bias
Mhm.
exist. It's not that I would say that we are a perfect organization and we do it everything very well. There are unconscious bias there, and the different types of biases for that matter is there.
Mhm.
But then how you deal with it is very important,
Exactly.
right? Today we had a session on collective or co-development.
Mhm.
It's a collective development that we say, and we include managers from cross-functional team to discuss about a problem.
Okay.
See, it's one problem, whatever is there, it's not just individual's problem, it
Mhm.
is organization's problem, right?
Mhm.
So if you discuss with a thought process that it is our collective responsibility to solve the problem,
Mhm.
and that's how we will work together towards it.
Mhm.
It cannot be an individual. If I have to take a decision individually, I
Mhm.
might only take on my own intelligence,
Mhm.
which might be right or might not be right at times. So it is important that a collective team comes forward and discusses it and they agree to it. For example, when we launched our Male Ally program,
Mhm.
I had to do a lot of groundwork for launching it, because our workforce for women can only be successful if women get a space to grow in the career,
Right.
and it is not easy in the male dominated environment where
Mhm.
women gets an opportunity to grow. And there are only handful, not all of them gets that opportunity. So I had to create mentors, coaches, and those has to be the male allies.
Mhm.
Unless and until the male ally is able to understand the potential of a woman working along with them
Mhm.
and they support them, it is not difficult for a woman to grow. So we created this concept of male ally. For me to launch this concept, I had to do at least 6 months to 7 months only groundwork in terms of having discussions.
Mhm.
This is a concept that we are bringing into the table. What do you think that? it will work out or not. We brought in people from the industry, those who have been the male allies, like Ford India. Anirban is a good friend, so
Mm-hmm.
he's a male ally for Ford India. So we brought in him to speak about how he was a male ally, what
Mm-hmm.
is different to be a male ally, and how can individuals like colleagues, those who can be male allies. So we brought in experts from outside also to tell, not just look at inside only, also outside best practices which is happening in different organization,
Mm-hmm.
bring them along so that they share their experiences. And then we asked people, our employees, hey, we are launching this program on male ally, tell us three things that you are a male ally and
Mm-hmm.
why you are a male ally, write to us. So there was a type of buzz that we created in the organization. Then people started doing it. Now it is a free flow of thoughts. Now people, my colleagues, my female colleagues, they come and nominate, ma'am, I want to nominate him as my male ally because I feel this is what he's done for me, and it has helped me build my career and get into a greater success.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm able to build my skills, competences better, and I'm doing better in my career. So I owe this to my male ally or
Mm-hmm.
my male colleague, and I want to recognize him. So when we have our events that we do it, which is done by Workforce for Women, it was not planned. It was not planned that they will get this recognition, but then it so happened that female are now understanding the importance of their male counterparts in the organization, and they are trying to come forward and recognize. So
Mm-hmm.
that's something which is very unique, and it evolved on its own, which I'm happy about, which I was able to envisage it, but then was not sure in terms of how it will materialize. But then when it is happening on its own, and then people are recognizing it, and
Mm-hmm.
there is a collective effort in terms of working together, and that's the best thing that can happen.
Wow. I'm saying the word wow again. I hope you don't copyright that word based on the wow.
I think it's already copyrighted.
So, I mean, whatever you said just now about the male ally thing, uh, it's a wonderful initiative, and I think this is what HR services or HRs are supposed to do: find solution, not fixes. So when the organization says that we want diversity or we want inclusion, most of the HRs that I have seen, they create fixes. Okay, let's hire females in this particular category, or let's hire someone from the LGBTQ, or let's promote the gender equality and all these things without even realizing what they are getting into or how the future will change. And that creates a very conflicting scenario at the workplace, because a lot of people are not acceptable for a lot of things, because everyone comes with a background, with a mindset, with a different kind of upbringing in a different environment. And I feel the kind of initiative that you have taken with male allies, uh, it's a step forward, and I'm sure it took you some time to establish this kind of thing in the organization, and this is a permanent solution, I feel, and this must have definitely created a kind of harmony while accepting diversity and inclusion in the organization. And this, I mean, I'm just commending you. I mean that this is a wonderful thing that you have brought up, and I feel that most of the HRs I have met over the course of my career, they have to watch this podcast, because it's not about the fixes that the organization asks you, it's about the solution, a long lasting solution which can be amplified over the years. So these are just the initiatives that you have taken through WOW and through Male Allies, and I'm sure over the course of years this will amplify further and this will grow into a different kind of work culture.
Certainly, I hope so. Thank
So
you very
this
much.
is from my side.
And
And
just to add, I mean, I'm so happy that it's been recognized. We also are being able to get our level up. It's called GIS,
mhm,
Gender Equality and Inclusion in the
mhm,
international standards.
mhm,
So it's a highest level of certification, which has been given by Bureau Veritas, and it's again little European. But then we were at level 3.
mhm,
Just last week, we were recognized as level 4, level 4 in our gender equality
mhm,
initiatives that we do, and level 3 in the diversity. So, which talks about like whatever we do, and what is the impact that we bring into the lives of the people.
mhm,
It's not an initiative that you do or implement in the organization. but what is the impact? Like you have been in training, so you understand
Mm-hmm.
impact when you
I understand. I
there's
completely
impact in
understand.
Kirkpatrick, all these models that you have studied. So what is the impact that has been brought in the life of people is what matters at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I thought I'll take this opportunity to share also, that in the level of highest level of the certification also, we have been able to uh, put forward and get the next level of certification for our organization.
Wow. So talking about the HR and because you have been into HR and hiring also and the other side also now, how has the HR services transformed over the years? I mean, what was the perspective of HR or perception about HR back in 2004, and what is it right now in 2025? Because now we have so many courses and so much of learning that has gone behind this. What do you think? How the HR has transformed over the years?
I think it's a lot of transformation. I feel outdated when I think about what I was doing in 2004.
Mm-hmm.
Because see, in 2004 it was more of an administrative HR, where you need to sit with a lot of documents and you can show yourself busy by showing that I'm shortlisting this resume, I'm doing so much of entry work and all of that. Today, HR has become more tech savvy. There's a lot of automation which has come in HR, whether it is in terms of recruitment, performance management, attendance monitoring system, you name it. There is an technology or an AI tool available to help HR to sort out issues and make things life easy. So there's a lot of transformation which has happened in terms of we looking at only Excel sheets. Now it is AI would give you a report which is more of analytics and can help you take any decision. So recruitment that we used to do it, calling candidates and all that,
Mm-hmm.
shortlisting resumes, looking at the JDs. Today AI is making your life so easy in terms of matching the JD with the candidate profile and giving you the shortlisted one, and also giving you lead questions which you should ask
Right.
while you actually do an interview. So things have become more better now, and the smartness of an HR comes in terms of how you can utilize the tools to the best of your capability to make sure that you work more efficiently with the tools which is available, and focus more on the strategic. It is not more going to be more of administrative, but it is moved from an administrative to a strategic role, where you look at the data, try and see, underline, read between the lines is what we keep telling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So look at those data and see what the data is telling you in terms of making sure that whatever you make the recommendation from the data, that the analysis that you do gives more meaning to the organization and helps the organization in terms of deciding how things can become much better going forward.
True, true. And since the efficiency is increasing, do you feel that there are going to be less jobs in HR sector because AI is doing most of the work? I'm not saying that it's going to replace the HR because selection procedure needs to have some human intervention, some human touch. But do you think that there are going to be less jobs in HR because the efficiency increases? So earlier, when we used to call 10 candidates and do shortlisting or profiling of those 10 candidates, it used to take us at least 1 to 2 hours. Now these things are done automatically by AI. And now we have a shortlisted list ready for us in, let's say, 5 minutes. So the efficiency increases. That means the number of people, number of time, the amount of time that we are taking to hire, certain number of candidates, the time has decreased. Even though the number of candidates are not increasing, do you feel there are going to be less jobs in HR in future?
See, HR will have different job now.
Mm-hmm.
See, because of the human interface which is reduced, it is impacting on the other side.
Okay.
Like, for example, my employee experience. If I have to enhance my employee experience,
Mm-hmm.
I need to have someone with empathetic listening. An
Mm-hmm.
Amber or any other tool, which is an AI tool, cannot, a chatbot will not be able to get those responses which a human interface will be done. So,
True.
enhancing employee experience is what a human resource would only be able to do it. And more than that, there are a lot of issues, other issues are coming up today, is on the mental health and well-being of the resources. So these are all things who will be able to bridge
Address.
that.
Right.
So that's where a human interface is definitely required in terms of planning in engagement and empowerment programs, so that there are issues which is related to the human, the resources, because
Mm,
resources today people have understood. Earlier it was understood that okay, HR is only doing a data entry work or doing a recruitment job, but today they've all understood, the companies and the organizations have understood that people are important. All
mhm,
said and done, people are important. They are the assets for the organization. They are the one who will drive the business. And
mhm.
to make them happy is a big question. And
True.
how do you make them happy? Only human resource professionals can do it. And they can only design tools. They can also understand. How will they design the tools? They will have to interact with people, listen to their problems, be empathetic in their listening, not just listen, be an empathetic listener, and
Mhm.
then try and understand what is that they are going through and what solutions that we can bring into the system.
True.
Today when I see there's a lot of issues related to mental health and well-being.
Mhm,
People are earning a lot of money, but they are somehow not been able to save the money,
mhm,
and also they are been stretching themselves too much that they could, and that's when they're getting into issues of all type of other uh, malfunctions that happens to them.
mhm, mhm,
And that's when they need someone to talk to. And that's when we are also coming up in certain things where addressing the mental health and well-being, we say we care is
mhm,
one of our values, which is the wellness and well-being of our people. And when we are talking about wellness and well-being, the core focus is now on mental health and well-being.
True.
And when it's mental health and well-being, it is not just we try and give them an employee assistance program where
Mhm,
they they talk to a chatbot or talk to somebody outsider, and they don't end up getting what they want to get.
mhm,
Apart from an EAP, somebody inside the organization whom they can actually relate to. So we started something called Q Buddy,
mhm.
who becomes a buddy in the organization and helps, and that because that got really good achievement in terms of globally from the Qlis group.
Mhm.
And this Q Buddy, now we have relaunched this colleague program. So
Okay.
colleague is someone who is there in the organization who can help a new joinee,
Mhm,
give them guidance, mentoring, and try and see how they can handle. Similarly, we are talking to, there are a lot of other subsidiaries in our organization. Qlis group have implemented something on mental health and well-being. For example, there's something called person of trust,
mhm, mhm,
there's something called are you okay, and mental health first aid officers. So we are talking to different best practices which is available within the Qlis group, to see what is that can work out for us, because not one size fit all.
Right.
Each country is different, each unit is different. So whatever can work out here for India or maybe for Hyderabad might not work for Pune.
Mhm,
So we are trying to customize certain solutions. And who will be able to do it? It is only HR. HR is someone who will be able to understand these issues and will be able to implement. Of course, we would need operations, maintenance, other functions to help us in terms of getting it spread across. But then you need people, those who can design, understand the people problem, and design some solution which can be implemented and can be useful for the organization. So that's where, when AI has taken a lot of its effort, work, and whether it is recruitment, some burden has come down, but there's some more is also there where we can play a role in terms of engaging with the people, ensuring they are empowered and they deliver to the best of their capability.
a lot of times, matlab, I have worked in a lot of companies, and the operations team and the HR team never goes hand in hand because they always look against each other. The HR has certain policies to follow, and the operations has certain targets to achieve. So sometimes the employee is hanging between the HR and the operations because the operations can be very demanding. The HR has to be employee centric. So, how, as an HR, can we find a balance between the operations and the work life balance, like the employee centricity? The reason why I'm asking this is because I've worked in a lot of companies in the past. I've worked in IT, I've worked in BPOs, I've worked in finance, and everywhere I went, the HR has a very different guidelines towards the employee welfare And sometimes those guidelines are overlooked by the operations team, because you have managers, you have bosses over there who are target oriented, and sometimes they ask you to work overtime without pay, without even telling you that you're not getting paid overtime. Sometimes they ask you to log in on Sundays also through your laptops. And HR is normally is about employee centricity. So a lot of times this happened with me also, and with a lot of colleagues I used to work with. They used to reach out to the HR, and the HR used to have a fight with the operations team that why are you making the employee work for so many time, such a long time. And the operations is like, we have a target to achieve. And there's a lot of back and forth communication that used to happen, and then the employee used to be in the middle hanging between those people. That's when the skip level meetings started being organized, and that's when these kind of initiatives started happening in organizations.
Okay, HR for first and foremost is the custodian function,
Mm-hmm.
right? Custodian function because we form the HR rules, regulations, policies, and any organization for that matter. If you do not have the basics in place,
Mm-hmm.
then the organization will collapse.
True.
And that's where HR plays a very important, vital role in terms of framing those policies. And those policies are for whom? For
Mm-hmm.
the people, those who work for the organization. So you need to look at which industry that you work for, what is the type of people that you have, and it has to be something which is people friendly.
Mm-hmm.
And also at the same time, you have your HR rules, which has to be followed across from the top to bottom.
Mm-hmm.
So it is important is one, you have standard framework of policies which has been discussed, debated, formulated, circulated, and communicated across the layer.
Mm-hmm.
I think communication in HR is the key. When you have policies, please talk loudly about the policies that you have and make sure that each and every individual working in the organization is able to understand what the policies are and what they are responsible for
Mm-hmm.
and what they are eligible to get or not eligible to get.
True.
So, if you have those policies and you are able to communicate loud and clear among your employees, I think half of the problems get solved. And the next one that you asked is there is always a friction between operations and HR. I think the friction will only happen when HR team or HR is not aligned with the organization. See,
Okay.
each organization has their own business intent, their responsibility in terms of delivering. We are an operation and maintenance company
Mm-hmm.
where we run the metro rail for Hyderabad, and we have our KPIs. KPIs in terms of manpower, KPI in terms of delivery, KPI in terms of safety. Everything is very important. And an HR cannot be disaligned to the organization KPI.
True.
And the moment the HR is disaligned, the organization, I will feel sorry for that organization.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the HR's responsibility to make sure that they are aligned with the organization's KPIs and the roles and the goals that they have got. And at the same time, educate their counterparts, whether it is operations, maintenance, or safety, to talk about what are the rules and regulations. For example, very simple thing that I would talk here, grooming is something very important, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not that we talk about it very loudly everywhere. But then once in a while, if you tell that, hey, you need to come in your uniform, these are the company standards and all, it's nothing wrong,
Mm-hmm.
right? This is a very simple example, but it has to be communicated, and sometimes we as human tend to forget the rules and regulations. So it is HR, who is again a custodian function, has to tell you that, boss, these are the rules and regulations of the company.
Mm-hmm.
9 to 6 is our working hours, or 8 hours is the working hour. You need to be there on time. So these are basics, but has to be told. And when it comes to requirement of operations, operations might have to stretch and do something which is required for making sure that they deliver as per the organizational requirement. Or the HR should be also in a position to understand what is the need for them, what is the
Mm.
support that we have to provide. And that proactiveness, if HR is not able to give, HR is not in the right place.
True. True. And I mean, this brings me to the next question. So there are actually two questions which I'm going to combine together and throw a curveball towards you. So, you have been into HR and education for over 25 years. So, you have taught people, you have been in training, you have been in recruitment, and you have been in HR also. So, how has the recruitment process or finding the right candidate process changed over 25 years when it comes to generational difference, like from Gen Z, Gen X to millennials, then Gen Z. So how did it happen? I mean, did you find any kind of difference between generations while hiring people?
See, I learned very basic from my boss, my first boss, Ashokan Pichai. I'm very fond of him.
Mm-hmm.
So he taught me when I entered Mafo. He taught me, Arina, when you have to hire, look at skills.
Mm-hmm.
But before you look at skills, look at the attitude.
Right, and that was going to be my next question.
So
What do you
hire
exactly look
hire
for?
for attitude,
Mm-hmm.
look for skills, and then of course the knowledge and the educational qualification and everything is important. But then if you are hiring for someone, if you are not looking at the right attitude, then I think it would not be the uh, good thing for you. And I had taken his word, and then I have hired soft skills trainers. Those are engineers,
Mm-hmm.
those who became to be soft skills trainers. I had hotel management guys, those who became customer service agents.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there are variety of such hiring that I have done, which is very unconventional. But
Mm-hmm.
by God's grace, I always went by what he said me, that look for an attitude, and rest of the things can be trained. If the candidate has a right attitude and an appetite for learning, I think rest of the things can be in place and can be trained. And I have never gone wrong for the
Mm-hmm.
hirings that I have done, for number of hirings that I have done. So that's what, and that remains the same for me even today. Today also the generations, I mean, it's been 20 years, more than 20 years now. When I do an interview, I first look at an attitude of the person,
Mm-hmm.
and then look for the skills, and then the qualifications and other things.
So, how do you think? What do you think is going to be the future of the HR system or the HR ecosystem in next 10 years? Because most of the people are working from home. I agree that HR will be involved, and it's more of a hybrid situation. Where do you think the HR will stand in the organization when it comes to 2035 maybe?
So Pratik, very interesting question, huh? I feel we are at the very interesting stage in our HR careers now. AI has brought in a lot of new things which we keep learning, and I think there's a lot of reverse mentoring keeps happening now. I feel so good now where I work with youngsters, and I get to learn what Power BI is, what how do you make best use of your chat GPTs of the world and stuff. So, but most importantly, today we are in a stage where when we have AI also dominating in terms of making our HR journey easy. I think HR will take the best use of the tools which is available, and focus on more of the analytics that comes out of it, and design solutions for employees that can be more user friendly. Because today we have never thought of an virtual onboarding, for example. Onboarding is like you come, fill up your form, and get into the onboarding process, induction, and all that. Today, everything is on. It's more of a virtual, right? So these are new experience for HR, but it is good, and there are no borders now. Earlier, we used to think that हाँ यहाँ से जा वहाँ जाके we'll have to do some joining and all that done. So there's no borders. The cross uh, concept of border actually has evolved, and you can work from anywhere. So HR can actually help in terms of building the future leaders, help organization in terms of how you can do a better succession planning, look at strategies on retention, look at strategies on how you can actually help employees with a better work life balance solution that can be given. And of course, like you have been talking about this a lot in terms of mental health and well-being, what are the different things that HR can do in terms of mental health well-being? So I have an interesting anecdote with you to share, where we do a lot of such initiatives apart from what I've spoken to you, in terms of yoga, in terms of meditation, in terms of giving them an input on what could be the possible prevention that you can do in terms of not getting into a some disease that could be possibly affecting your family and all of that. So these are certain things which we keep doing, so that this education and other things which HR can do. And of course, create mentors, create coaches inside the organization. We do work with inside the organization where we create mentors, where they do through a mentorships journey, create individual development plan. I think that's very powerful. You were talking about what is the transition that you everyone does a performance management system and all that. They do also have an individual development plan. And I remember you talking to me, asking about what could be the learning and the development cycle for people that can work out in the organization. So now we have seen the organizations have been doing a lot in terms of learning and development, but the learning and development which has been happening, it is a very generic. Now the HR will focus on more customized, because an AI tool which is not just doing the recruitment, they will also be able to predict what is the career aspiration of an individual. If you are able to predict a career aspiration of an individual, you should be able to also design an IDP which can help an individual to meet that aspiration levels. So that those are the different things which HR can most interestingly get into and do it down the line. And that's the uh, thought that I have, that could be the future. And it's not that it's not happening now, but it can be more scientifically done, because the tools would give you more predictive analysis than what you can do as an individual. And it will also give you guidelines in terms of this could be different interventions that can an HR also can bring into the system. So it becomes little more easy, apart from you having an empathetic listening, which I keep telling all the time to all my team members, that it is not just about we doing a pulse survey. Pulse survey will give us what they want to write, but try and dig into details about why somebody is not happy, and try and understand the root cause of it. There could be someone who is not happy or not having a proper work life balance, because that person could be a single parent struggling to get things done on herself, and trying to get things manage work and the family. So it might be difficult for that person. So are we able to see that what support that we can give at that point of time to that person? Those out of the box thinking is what we will have to look at when we are trying to do something more than what a traditional HR would do, and try and see how a mental health and well-being of individuals can be addressed by looking at different options, because one size will never fit all. And that's when I think HR will bring in a lot of newness into what we can bring into the table.
That's a brilliant answer, and this brings me. I mean, this actually invokes a new question in my mind. So, what skills do you feel the new skills, or the additional skills that HRs would need to sustain in this kind of future? So the skills that the future HRs would need. So the students who are planning to do HR related courses in next few years, or who are entering the HR market in next few years, what skills do you feel are going to be relevant and are going to be long lasting for their sustenance in this particular segment?
I think it's a blend of understanding the data, analyzing the data, plus bring the humanness of being more empathetic. I think that empathy is becoming just a word, is getting not been practiced in reality. So if they can be bring in that, and they be little more agile. Today's workforce, we see there is a lot of things that they are doing, and also being resilient. I think bouncing back to situations they feel laid down if something goes wrong. I've been interacting with a lot of fresh interns, those who work with me. They feel disturbed if something wrong has happened. So the ability to bounce back is something which is somewhere I miss that at times. So being resilient, being agile, and at the same time be showing more curiosity to learn. See, today's generation, if you are you have so much of information available for you. When we used to look for data, we used to look for Google. was the only Google Mata was the only one
Yeah.
available for us at that point of time. But now you don't have to do so much of hard work. Look at Google and then you would look at what is relevant for you and then select it. Now you go to a Chat GPT or a Gemini or any of those tools. It will throw you all important inputs and it gives you in that fingertips. What you need to do is how do you implement it? See, everyone will get the same input, but how do you actually process that input and try and see that it has been implemented in the right way so that it gets helpful? So that intent, if you have in terms of being curious to see how the implementation will be, and at the same time have the learning agility, learn new things which is coming up, learn about people. We don't learn more about the success stories and also the failures. One of those events that we did recently for our organization is learn from your failures. We like to hear only success stories, but learn from the failures. We have every day, what we do is we have something called an operations and safety meeting, and each failure, small, it could be a very small minute failure also, it gets analyzed, and a note on the learning that we have from the failure is being circulated and is being debriefed to each and every person. So those learning from failures is something which is very important. Learning from success, yeah, you feel good, overwhelmed with the success that comes to the table, but what do you learn from the failure is something is very important.
That's 100% true, and I feel that failure is the best teacher. And success is a little overrated, but failure is the real hero that takes you to the success. And only after you reach that successful point in your life, people start recognizing you. I mean, this is the true truth of the society, and all they cherish is the success, but no one looks for the kind of struggle, the kind of hardships that you have been through to be here. So when we talk about walking because someone else is walking is not something people do. They fall and they learn how to walk. So failure, I feel, is the best teacher. And this also reminds me of a question. You were just talking about understanding people as HR. Do you think that psychology should be one of the modules which should be added in the HR courses? So that do you think I mean, I'm just taking your opinion. Do you feel psychology should be added as one of the modules in the HR related courses so that anyone who is completing the HR course are more attuned towards human psychology, understanding people?
I think it's there already, isn't it? We all studied. I don't remember if it's not there now. Human psychology was one of the topic, and
Mm-hmm.
we used to. I go back to my Mahor Randstad days where, based on the psychology of a human being and the organization,
Mm-hmm.
we used to design assessments.
Mm-hmm.
The assessment centers were been designed based on the psychology. Psychological tool has been a very important tool. So people who, if they have studied psychology,
Mm-hmm.
they can help organizations design various type of assessments or tools that can be helpful. I'm sure it is it is useful
Mm-hmm.
because it would help you in terms of understanding a human being using various tools that you can
True.
design and assess an individual.
Mm-hmm.
So, Indian companies today are moving from an educational based hiring to a skill based hiring because uh, it's like easy for them to plug and play. And most likely, companies, those who are into artificial intelligence, cyber security, or digital marketing, and all of that, people, those who come with the skills, it is easy for them to plug them and get them on into the job, and they save a lot of time in terms of the training and upskilling those people. So that's the reason I think that's the take on my skill based hiring which happens in India.
Well, this actually reminds of something. Um, while skill-based hiring is something which is happening right now, but when it comes to growth in that particular segment, do you think without degree a person can grow and reach a certain top level management kind of position without a degree?
So as I told you sometime before, today people are not looking at vertical growth, not many.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen people, those who have rejected, also taking up a role of a manager.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of coaxing that you have to be doing in terms of making sure that, hey, there's an opportunity for you. They're quite happy to be an individual contributor,
Mm-hmm.
because when you take up managerial roles and all that, there comes with a lot of responsibility, other responsibility. The trend is changing now.
Mm-hmm.
So people are happy doing, being specialized in what they do. And in case if they would like to grow up in the organization, not necessarily qualification is required. Qualification skills, again, in terms of the behavioral skills, it's not just qualification, but your skills in terms of, there are two skills that I keep talking about. One is your domain skills or your technical skills, which is like a T-shaped skills, right? So your vertical side is your domain or the technical skills,
Mm-hmm.
which will help you do what you're doing to the best of your capability. And the horizontal skills are your leadership skills, your soft skills, your behavioral skills, that will help you in terms of taking up more responsibility in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So to answer your question, it's not just the qualification, but also what is the behavioral skills that you have got in terms of taking up more responsibility and being able to grow in the organization.
Mm-hmm.
So organizations will also look at, is those skills trainable? Are you a person who can acquire those skills over a period of time and then grow? And if you are having that mindset that, yes, I would like to grow up, organization is also willing to invest on those skills on you. But
Mm-hmm.
you should have the learning mindset that you would like to take it up and take up more responsibility. And hence, I don't think qualification becomes a criteria. In some cases, of course, there are criterias where, for some rules and regulations, where you need that qualification. Without that, you cannot grow up.
True.
So that becomes mandatory. Otherwise, I don't think that's the need which is prevalent today. It is more of the training that you would like to take on the job. There are different types of training. Again, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of on the job training that you
True.
learn. It's not like you have learned earlier. You learn it on the job and then you implement things. So they can do that on the job training, and then they can definitely grow up. And organizations will definitely be able to support if somebody is willing to take up more responsibility to grow. If
Mm-hmm.
we as an organization, we provide group leadership framework, which is our
Right.
foundation of our organization, where we talk about how do you lead your own self, lead others and other
True.
organization. So if you are you're willing to take up more senior role, then you should be qualified and should have been certified
Mm-hmm.
as a group leadership framework. So that becomes a foundation for us in the organization.
It was one of the most intriguing discussion I've ever had with someone from the HR sector, and I hope you enjoyed the discussion. And before we depart, is there any message that you want to give away to the students who are aspiring to be future HRs, and to the existing HRs who are, feeling stuck in their particular job, or who are just missing out on the fun?
See, HR is all about being human.
Mm-hmm.
You might know all the technical knowledge that you acquire from your college, but if you do not bring in the human touch to what you do, and then possibly you will not be able to be successful. So
Mm-hmm.
bring in a blend of both, where you can understand the data which is available, but your human touch is something which will help you in terms of making you become a true HR.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Das, for joining us for this discussion.
Thank you.
And for all the future HRs, and for all the audience who are watching this particular podcast, if you're interested in pursuing a course in HR, please reach out to our team at 1-800-309-PINE. That's 1-800-309-7463. Alternatively, you can scan the QR code here, and that will take us to one of our team members, one of the expert counselors that we have at Pine. And please say thank you to Dr. Das
Thank you.
once again.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
so much,
having me.
Dr. Das.